And this is about immigration, our favorite subject here at the Tango Hotel. Yes. More majority back then. The combat was really fun. Yeah. And so David J. Beer recently published at the Cato Institute of the 240 Venezuelans the U.S. government sent. The U.S. government rendition 2 months ago to El Salvador's notorious prison. We identified 50 of them came here legally, never violated any immigration law, but are imprisoned at the U.S. government's request and at taxpayer expense. Now, as far as I understand, and yes, I did ask Rock to fucking summarize because I want you to see this thing. Did it actually show the thing? Yeah. So, of all the people that we've sent to the Venezuelans, now you got to remember how many qualifiers there are. Of the Venezuelans, not of the entire population of people, of the Venezuelans that we sent there, 50 of them came to the U.S. legally. That does not mean that they are not part of a gang. That does not mean that they are not criminals. But what it does mean is that they came here legally and were not illegal aliens. Okay. I like there because there are qualifiers to this, which is why I point this out, right? So again, of the 240 Venezuelans, so specifically Venezuelans, that we sent to the El Salvadorian prison, 50 of them came here legally. Never violated any immigration law that we are aware of. It also doesn't mean they're not criminals, but they haven't been convicted of a crime in the United States. But they have been in prison. This is why I want to qualify this, because this is not everyone. This is just of these people. I think Cato Report is from there. Yes. It's Cato at Liberty. And so a lot of the stuff in here is, I'm not going to stand on that because that's freaking killing my eyes. But yeah, so we only have info on just over half of them. 40 were illegal, 50 were legal. 84 unknown. But again, just because they were here legally doesn't mean they can't be deported. It also doesn't mean that they weren't criminals, right? However, they were never convicted of a crime, and they didn't violate immigration law so far as we know, right? Because they could be here legally, but could have violated immigration law in the past, right? Or had violated their legal terms and we didn't know about it. Not like any of that matters, because literally, like, the whole point the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the fact that if these individuals, how should I say this? I can understand people who are part of criminal gangs and institutions from other countries that are coming over here stirring up shit, deporting them to this place. However, you would need extreme amounts of evidence to make that claim. And unfortunately, it does appear that some of these people are in here simply because they have certain types of tattoos that are not necessarily gang related. Actually, you know what? I think he does it. Yeah. Okay. So it's better. Yeah. We'll just look at his Twitter thread. And so now these claims could be false, but so far as I know, they've been corroborated by other news organizations. So like, I would not immediately count these as gang tattoos. I don't know about you. Now, it could be this is like a false image, right? Where these are tattoos from another part of the body that were not necessarily used in the identification of a gang member. You know the fucking media would do that, so let's not pretend they don't. And so what this means is that potentially we have over 50 people who came here legally, never committed a crime, that are being jailed in El Salvador. And so what that means is like, imagine they weren't in El Salvador, but they were in the United States of America. And we took what appears to be legal immigrants and just put them in jail and left them there without convicting them of a crime. Now, it's one of those things where it's like there is wiggle room here because we did this to terrorists in Guantanamo Bay and it was bad, but it is something that the United States has done and continues to do, and it's one of these arguments where some things do trump national security, and I'm just gonna pull it up again. I'm gonna continue to do this for the rest of my fucking life. Some things do trump national security. Sometimes does trump things, and most Americans would agree that it does. So, but this is bad. If this is true, this is bad. And if these guys are, unless there is like overwhelming amounts of evidence that these guys were involved with gangs and not just tattoos, then we definitely, I really hate that they're calling it a fucking gulag. It's like, fuck you, dude. China has fucking gulags. You fucking assholes. But anyway, the point is that if these are actually innocent individuals and there's not overwhelming evidence that these aliens are part of some type of like trans-international fucking gang, then we need to make this right. 100%. This needs to be corrected. These people need to be released, brought back to the United States, and they need to be compensated for the things that the United States government has done to them. Because it's entirely possible that these people were mistakenly identified as gang members because of dumb fucking cops. Excuse me. Because of ignorant police officers. Because that's really what it boils down to, is ignorance. Because you can imagine, like, if you've been in any kind of organization in your entire life, they're filled with retards. They absolutely are filled to the brim with retarded motherfuckers that will use weaponized incompetence consistently all the time. And it's entirely possible that many of these individuals were arrested because, there's a gang symbol that has if they've got, if there's a gang symbol that involves a crown, but it involves like 10 other things along with a crown, and they see one motherfucker with a crown, they must be in a gang, right? It's entirely possible that there's multiple things going on. There could be officers who are intentionally sabotaging this to make it look bad. There could be officers who are fucking stupid and can't fucking, tell their asshole from their elbow, and therefore they identified this. There are ones that are probably incompetent in the fact that they can't properly identify gang tattoos and hold complex things in their brain at the same time. And then there's ignorance, where they don't know anything about gang tattoos, and so they're using like a fucking quick spreadsheet, and they're literally just randomly choosing which ones this looks like this one, so that must mean they're a gang member, when they don't have any of the other tattoos, right? So that breeds ignorance and stupidity. So there's multiple levels of things that could go on here. I think the least likely and the least amount of this is probably intentional, right? It's very unlikely that there are officers that are intentionally doing this, because here's the reason. Even if they were intentionally doing this to make Trump look bad, it makes them evil as fuck, right? How evil is it? How evil is it to send innocent people to jail to make El Presidente look bad? So, is it possible there's somebody doing that? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Is it likely? Ooh, that's probably a big no, right? Are there corrupt police officers? Are there police officers that lie? Yes. All up and down the board. This goes a bit far, right? Especially just to make Trump look bad when you're already a police officer. When, the Trump administration has basically aligned itself with the police kind of deal, law and order type shit. So it is entirely possible. There are absolutely people on blue team who are that evil, just like there are people who are on red team who are absolutely evil enough to look at this person and be like, oh, look, he's got a crown. Must be a gang member. Send him to the gulag. A Venezuelan jail, too. They are notorious for people disappearing. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the El Salvadorian prison that we're sending them to in El Salvador. So this is bad. If this is true, this is bad. However, I would like to point out that Just because someone is in the country legally doesn't mean they're not part of a criminal gang. 2, just because they're here legally doesn't mean they can't be deported for any reason. Literally. That's part of the thing you sign when you do that. So be a good boy. But what it does mean is that we need to see more evidence. Right? Because we were led to believe that these were all illegals and all part of criminal gangs. And if they're using not so great methods to identify individuals who are part of the gang, this is bad. This is bad. It is. And it literally could be something below the administration where this is fucking up. Like it could be on a local problem. It could be, a territorial problem. And what I mean by that is the people who are running like local jurisdictions of ICE and or police departments in, Alabama or freaking Texas or New York State, right? They could be fucking up at light speed. The local places in the cities could be fucking up at light speed. But none of that shit matters because the buck stops with the president. Simple as. This is his fucking bullshit. He's the one that's been fucking spewing it. It's his fucking problem. And if this is true, he needs to fucking fix it. Because all this does is it gives more ammo to Blue Team to be like, he's fucking Hitler and he wants to send people to gulags. It's why this motherfucker is able to just use gulag and literally call it the Trump gulag. Like the Obama cages. And so it is one of those things is that just because you're an illegal alien does not mean you should go to an El Salvadorian prison for an undetermined amount of time. Now, if they came out and said that the individuals were being held there in a maximum security prison so that they could be given and afforded more due process after this fact so we could sort them out, I could buy that. It might be bullshit, but at least it's something. But this is not good. This is not good. And let's see, they can't fully profile because they were disappeared without warning and are being held incommunicado. We were unable to speak to anyone outside of the torture prison for 2 years. That's great. For 2 months. And the U.S. government is saying it'd be insane to release any info about them. Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why I have to caveat all of this stuff is because unfortunately, even people who are trying to release information that is trying to, put more light on this are using inflammatory language that's meant to propagandize you into believing something that may or may not be true. And this is there's literal proof right here. Stop. We are confident in our law enforcement's intelligence, and we aren't going to share the intelligence report to undermine national security every time a gang member denies he is one. That would be insane. And the thing about it is that there is merit to this, but not when they're already in jail. Right? They're already there. So now we can let other third parties go through the information to ensure that you made the right decision. We need them to make the right decision. And I was wrong. I misread this. I did not believe they said insane, so I retract that he's using insane to propagate. No. They actually did fucking say that, apparently. So yeah, good one on him. Habeas corpus hasn't been suspended yet, and they can't get due process in El Salvador. They're citizens and deserve. No. What I'm saying is that what I mean by due process means literally follow the fucking law. Okay, that's pretty much what it means. I'm not saying they all get a trial. What I'm saying is that if these individuals were not illegal, which it appears some of them were not, then what that means is that for us we need to verify that the administration was correct in identifying them as gang members. So what you do is you get third parties, even in the government, and you release some of the information of some of these individuals to ensure that we are making the correct decisions. Right? The most transparent administration in history, right? Right? Now, like I said, there is a national security concern about releasing all the documentation we have on MS-13 and these gangs and how we identify them, but you could give us some of that information. Right? We could have other, gang experts go over the information, signing NDAs and stuff so they can't release the information itself, but where they can verify whether or not these individuals, or at least help verify that they are correctly identified as gang members. And if they're not, then then something needs to be done, right? They need to be freed and returned, or if they need to be deported, they need to be compensated for being in fucking prisoned and then sent the fuck home if they're going to be sent home. And I don't believe habeas corpus will be suspended. I don't believe that's going to happen. And so DHS continues to slander and lie about them, calling them all illegal aliens. When confronted about the lie, DHS lies more. For instance, it says Ricardo entered illegally at a port of entry via CBP-1. It literally describes as legal entry as illegal. Okay. You can come through a port of entry illegally. Just because you came through a port of entry doesn't mean you came through legally through that port of entry, right? Okay. I can't remember. Didn't FDR suspend it along with Lincoln? I think Lincoln did. Let's ask Rock. How many times has habeas corpus been suspended in the U.S.? I don't think he suspended habeas corpus, did he? During the Civil War, President Lincoln suspended habeas corpus in April of 1861. During the Reconstruction of South Carolina, 1871. Philippines, 1905. Hawaii after Pearl Harbor. That absolutely makes sense. But it was only in Hawaii. The suspension facilitated martial law and detention of others for safety, and was upheld in 1946. So it says it was suspended in Hawaii under the Hawaiian Organic Act, not that it was suspended in all of the United States in 1940. Oh, I see. Fuck you, New York Times. That's odd. Oh, they use it as a okay. So that it was there. Administration is wise. So I did not know when was this out? May 16th. That might be why. The administration is actively evaluating the possibility of suspending constitutional protection has been placed more than 2 centuries. Yes, we know. Considering suspending. Miller suggested last Friday the government would seek to suspend. Oh yeah, I did hear about this. Okay, so I remember he said when he suggested this. Yes, it's clear that of course is the supreme law of the land that the privilege of right of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion, which it absolutely can be. Like when people say, "Oh, it's unconstitutional," it's like, have you actually ever read the Constitution? But again, it's like, is it a false? Is it a not a false flag? Is it a false pretense of emergency to suspend the right of habeas corpus? So yeah, during World War II and Philippines during the Reconstruction era in South Carolina. I did not know this actually, and it was only in South Carolina apparently. Yeah, fuck the Klan. Federal troops to arrest and detain Klan members without immediate judicial review, effectively suppressing the group's activity in the areas. Does anybody have a problem with the Ku Klux Klan not having the writ of habeas corpus? Anybody? Raise your hand. All in favor, say aye. All right. Okay. As long as we're good. So, shoot them. I mean, I'm not going to lie, dude. Viscerally, I feel you. Because, dude, the Klan has been used as a bludgeon by fucking Northerners to make the South look bad for fucking ever. Just like with the slavery shit. And it makes me so mad. Makes me so fucking mad. Anyway, so yeah, this is definitely not a good thing, and I really want more information to come out so that more professionals can review it. Simple as, they don't need to release it to everybody. I just want more people looking at the information so that we can verify the people that they have are correctly identified as such. Because if they are part of Trinidad or Wagwa or whatever the fuck gangs that are actually doing crazy shit, then and they're illegal aliens, then I can understand doing this for at least a little while until we figure out what the fuck to do with them. So, because the thing about it is if you are in the country illegally, you can be detained until you get deported. Yeah, big problem in South Carolina and Georgia were the primary places. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, but again, we got to remember that pictures like this can be used deceptively because we can't see the rest of the body. We can't see any other tattoos. What this picture is getting you to do in your mind, it's getting you to relate that these innocent tattoos that just have, stupid shit on them are the primary reason that they're in jail. And it's entirely possible that that is correct. Right? But that's not the only thing. And we shouldn't just automatically assume that. Just like you shouldn't automatically assume the opposite. And this is why I've waited so long, is because I want actual information. I want to know what's going on. Because it could have entirely been true that everything that the fucking blue team was saying about this was completely and utterly fucking wrong. Other than the fact that, it's entirely possible you probably shouldn't just throw them in a fucking jail and leave them there, even if they are illegals. If you're gonna jail them, then you should probably convict them of some kind of crime, which shouldn't be hard necessarily if they literally are alien enemies, right? You probably could get some kind of RICO shit going on. Probably wouldn't take too much. So I don't know. And so this is the reason why I think so much has been lost in translation, is because the first thing Blue Team went for was they're Nazis because they're disappearing a Virginia father or a Maryland father, right? When Abrego Garcia was an actual illegal immigrant. And so they basically hooked their entire wagon to this dude, and he does not look like a good dude. Not really. Regardless of whether he's an MS-13 gang member, he definitely looks sus as fuck. And when you hit your entire moral argument to a man who appears to be immoral, you are losing. And that, I think, was the strategic mistake that a lot of people over there did. And it's like I made videos constantly about, if you automatically go to fucking Hitler, you have nowhere else to go. The only place you can go next is the devil. And so many people on the left and on Blue Team think Hitler is worse than the devil, which is categorically cannot be true. But whatever. We don't need to fucking argue stupidity when people are being stupid, right? So, yes, this is bad. It needs to be fixed. I want more information. I want to know if this is true. I want to know if this is verified, because this could just be bullshit as well. You understand that, right? Okay. Because just as much as the government lies, so does everybody else. This is why we have a thing in the Navy. In God we trust, all others bring evidence. And it looks like they have some, but we need more. We need more evidence. And I will say this. If this is true, if this is actually true, it could backfire very, very, very badly in Trump's face. Now, Trump isn't probably going to pay any price for this, but the Republicans, Red Team, the entire bullshit probably will. Because, you have the avatar of retardation, Asmongold, talking about, fuck that, fuck them, lock them up, get them out, all this stuff. And that reverberates with a large amount of the population because we're so tired of the immigration problem. Because for so long, dudes like this, who look exactly like this, who talk exactly like this, and who talk down to people like you and me, have been obfuscating criminals for decades. Using the, good-natured immigrants who want to come here for a better life, and using them to shield criminals because we feel bad for illegals. And we're tired of it. We're so tired of it that even if this is true, there's going to be a lot of people who are just not going to give a fuck. Right? And the reason they're not going to give a fuck is because why? Why do you think they're not going to give a fuck? Because it worked. Because all of these people were a warning shot. Come here and fuck around and you're going to find the fuck out. And they're going to be okay with it. Or at least they're not going to have as big of a problem with it as I will. And it's because it's gotten so bad. Again, what did we say about suspending habeas corpus? Right? If it's bad enough, then you could suspend habeas corpus. If it's bad enough. If the emergency is bad enough. The Constitution actually allows for somebody to become dictator during an emergency. Almost any liberal society would, in fact, allow for a suspension of almost all civil rights in an actual true emergency. Because you cannot survive certain catastrophes if you have civil rights protections. You just can't. You won't be able to. I don't think we could have survived the Civil War era intact the way we are if Lincoln didn't do almost all the shit that he did. All the horrible shit that he did. And I mean, it's the same with the Klan, right? Could we have crushed them as hard as we did back then with all their terrorism and shit if they hadn't done this? It might have been even worse. I mean, because you got to remember, they still continued up until like the 60s and 70s, and then they started to fall off really hard. But they weren't nearly as violent. That was the difference. They weren't like running around killing like tons and tons of people. They were doing it, but not as bad as this, right? This was really fucking bad. Yeah, we have a whole table just yelling at each other instead of one person making the decision. Exactly. That's the problem, is that in a true emergency, when shit has to get done, that's why the executive is a singular person and not like a group of people. Because when shit needs to get done, somebody needs to make the decision. One of the hats the presidents wear, that presidents wear, is the commander-in-chief of the military. And so when shit hits the fan, like imagine if we got double invaded by China and Russia on the East Coast and West Coast. What do you think the government would do? They would declare martial law immediately, suspending habeas corpus, all of it. We would be under military law. We'd fucking arm the population, and it'd be fucking time to lay down the fucking shit. And almost everybody would be okay with it. Like you'd have a lot of people who would not be, obviously, but the vast majority of people would be like, "We just got invaded. What the fuck are you talking about?" And so, and like, I'm like, one of the reasons it didn't go so far in World War II, I would imagine, is because we didn't actually have any fighting on American soil, right? There were no armies fucking rolling down Flatbush Avenue. Rome had the same deal in times of war. Yep. They would declare a dictator for that period until it was over. And they had 2 councils and a senate otherwise. Yes, indeed. Cincinnatus, I believe, is the example that he is the exemplar that we all look to when we look at the dictator who gives up power. He was made dictator to fight off a war. I believe it was Rome, to fight off barbarians. And then once they won, he gave up his power and went back to being a farmer. That is the kind of thing that George Washington is praised for doing by essentially not becoming a fucking king, which he probably could have done if he had truly desired it. He probably could have made it happen. He had enough clout, that's for damn sure. Congress made sure of that. And it's like serendipity that it didn't happen, because in almost every other instance in history, that's exactly what would have happened. Maybe it was because of the other founders. He knew he'd find a pistol in the back of his head if he did something like that. You know, Thomas Jefferson was not a man to be fucked around with. Let's just put it like that. So it's entirely possible that he'd got Abe Lincoln if he'd have done that, but you never know. And so I don't believe that we're at the point where we need to be suspending habeas corpus. Maybe for especially not for the entire country. Obviously not for the entire country. We're not there yet. Nowhere near it. But for illegal aliens, there are a lot of people that would take that argument at face value. And I cannot say that I don't find that it has purchase in my own mind, right? Because it is fucking bad. Like, I see it here in my home state, in my home city, where Trinidad Aragua is actually operating like fucking 20 miles from my goddamn house. Legal Eagles video on the third term and history of it. It's good. Legal Eagle videos on the third term. Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things where I do wonder if if Washington was really just, maybe I shouldn't become king because I don't want a bullet in the back of my head. They didn't have Secret Service and shit back then. So it's like, it's entirely possible. Because, I mean, think about it like this, dude. They just fought a war to get rid of a king, to make a republic. And some of the founding fathers are actual true rebels. They do not give a single fuck. And they want to do business. And they don't want you all up in their shit. Right? I have a feeling that somebody would have done something. But anyway, again, this is bad. I don't think we're at the point where we need to suspend this habeas corpus, especially not for the entire country, for citizens especially. Maybe you could make an argument for illegals, but I am still very much on the fence about that. I don't know if that serves us well right now. Yeah. Regardless of all the bullshit going on and everybody screaming their heads off about Nazis and all this shit, they're fucking retarded. They don't know what the fuck they're talking. Because the thing about it is that if it was a gulag and we were disappearing people, Tim Waltz would be one of the guys that we would have done that to. This guy would have been on one of those planes to fucking El Salvador. Like, that's what happens when Hitler comes to power, right? Men like this disappear because you're making them look bad. And maybe it's entirely possible that one of the reasons they're suspending habeas corpus for illegals is because they want to do it for citizens so they can disappear his ass. So it is possible they're all secretly fucking Nazis and evil and want to do all these things. And they're just slowly working their way up to it. Not very likely, but it is possible. But which universe do we live in? That, my friends, I do not know.